Well, to be very blunt, if you want to follow the news on Iran, you should not watch any of the Western media nor the Arabic media. Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, and Western media, they're all in the American camp. TRT, these are all NATO or NATO affiliated. So the best thing is to look to alternative media. And I think on my Twitter account, the people who I follow, some of those media outlets are much more credible, including your own, because you have guests who have very differing viewpoints than the viewpoints that are allowed on Western media. And I think history has shown that what is being said in alternative media, at least in the alternative media that I follow, is much more accurate and has been much more accurate for the last few years than anything we've seen in the Western media. In fact, when the war started, when the war of aggression against the Iranian people started, Trump said that he was surprised that Iran would respond in the Persian Gulf region. Well, if he had been listening to what I've been saying or what others like me have been saying, he wouldn't have been surprised. And that surprise stems from the fact that the West produces its own propaganda and believes its own propaganda, and therefore carries out policies based on that propaganda, and then their heads hit a brick wall. Just a few hours ago, Trump demanded Iran's unconditional surrender. And RT just asked me about that. And I told him, well, during the 12-day war, in the middle of that war, I think on the 7th day, he demanded unconditional surrender. And we know how that turned out. So one shouldn't be too impressed by Western media and Western propaganda. And we know how they functioned in the Gaza genocide. We know how they tried to hide Israeli crimes. Initially, when they would bomb hospitals, they would try to claim that it was the resistance. Then they tried to claim that there were tunnels underneath hospitals. Then the Israelis started just destroying so many hospitals that they decided to ignore it. And it got so ruthless and filthy and dirty, these attacks, that the Israeli soldiers would actually go into a hospital and unplug the incubators with infants inside them and leave them to die. And there was no reaction in the Western media that was of any real value, whether in The Guardian or the New York Times or Fox News or Sky News. They're all the same when it comes to Zionism, when it comes to the oligarchy that rules over the West. They may be a bit different in tone, and some of them may be somewhat more critical, but fundamentally they're the same. So, and we saw that during the State of the Union address of Trump. The only place where all of the senators and the Congress people got up and clapped like seals was when he was attacking Iran. So that is the state of affairs. On day one, they slaughtered almost 170 little girls at their elementary school. And Western media didn't care. And on that same day, they killed a large number of young women in a different city, almost 20, I think, who were playing volleyball in a gymnasium. That also went unreported. And they are carpet bombing Tehran, literally, every day on multiple occasions. They destroyed many hospitals. Actually, on the first day, one of the first things that they did was bomb a hospital in Tehran, and they destroyed the IVF clinic. And that hospital, which is a private hospital, is no longer used, and many women who want to have babies have lost that opportunity. This is the viciousness of the regime, that whether it's the Trump regime or the Netanyahu regime. They bombed the Red Crescent Society, both the central building in Tehran, but also in the provinces. They bombed the National Emergency Center, which is like a first response. They're in charge of first responders. Why do they do that? Because they want more people killed. If you recall, during those violent riots where they staged a military, something like a coup, there was a semi-coup attempt. They were destroying ambulances, many ambulances, and many fire trucks. Why were they doing that? Because they wanted the fires to rage and they wanted the injured to die. This is the same model. In fact, I now believe that what they did back then was to help them today, because a lot of damage was caused to these organizations that save people's lives and their homes and their belongings. So this is the reality of the war. Since they failed to destroy the underground missile cities, since they failed to destroy the underground missile factories and the underground drone cities, they're seeking revenge on ordinary people. And therefore, they're carrying mass slaughter across the board. Just, I think it was yesterday that they carried out a major massacre in Shiraz city and bombed a children's park and an ambulance center that were right beside each other. It's obvious that these are intentional. All of these are on the map. There's nothing hidden about these buildings. Just like the school, you could find it on Google Map. They bombed multiple schools. So this is a sinister war by two evil regimes that are supported by the collective West and regional despots. And sadly, regimes like the Erdogan regime, they're also helping, because Erdogan allows NATO to fly AWACS jets to collect information from Iran. And he also allows the U.S. to use its bases in Turkey for the war effort against Iran.